Our education system in America has been failing our children for decades now, which is why President Donald Trump recently signed an executive order to start dismantling the Department of Education. If we as a nation are going to survive under a constitutional republic, it not only has to go, we must replace it with what actually works. And thankfully, we know just what that is. Rosie the Riveter here, dropping more truth bombs to destroy fake news and propaganda. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to get new videos when they are uploaded. Now, let's get into today's riveting topic. When our country was founded and our Constitution was penned in 1787, our founding fathers believed deeply in education, yet promoted a decentralized government. Consistent with the principle of federalism, they left education to state and local authorities, per the 10th Amendment, where parents were directly involved. America followed this model until 1902, when a group of private citizens led by oil tycoon John D. Rockefeller formed the General Education Board. Actually, it started off as a constructive organization. The General Education Board was a private organization which was used primarily to support higher education and medical schools in the United States, and to help rural white and black schools in the South, as well as modernize farming practices in the South. At the same time, the progressive era was emerging in the country with the intention of fixing capitalism with government regulation, social welfare, and other reforms, ideas that helped foster the direction of America at the start of the 20th century, with advocates such as Teddy Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, W.E.B. Du Bois, Margaret Sanger, Upton Sinclair, Susan B. Anthony, and George Bernard Shaw. Congress incorporated the General Education Board on January 12, 1903, giving the board the legal authority to affect education nationally, as well as the ability to increase funding to do it. It also made it significantly easier for proponents of the Prussian model of education to push their ideology into schools throughout the country. The Prussian model was first introduced into the States in the 1840s by Horace Mann, often referred to as the father of American public education. The Prussian model of education wasn't designed to create critical thinkers. It wasn't even designed for kids. Prussian leaders built it to produce disciplined, obedient soldiers who would follow orders without question. Basically, it promoted teaching people what to think instead of how to think. Progressive Woodrow Wilson, a former Princeton University president, openly admired the German educational systems, including the Prussian model, which emphasized centralized state-controlled schooling, professional training, and civic discipline. As president, he used his influence and power to bring his educational ideas to reality. Critics insisted Rockefeller and fellow philanthropist and steelmaker Andrew Carnegie were only interested in education so as to produce good, obedient workers for their factories, especially with the influx of immigrants following World War I, instead of training thinkers and entrepreneurs who could not only work for themselves, but might actually become competitors and hone in on their profits. One of those critics was Albert Einstein. In a speech to the State University of New York in 1936, Einstein stated, "Sometimes one sees in the school simply the instrument for transferring a certain maximum quantity of knowledge to the growing generation. But that's not right. The knowledge is dead. The school, however, serves the living. It should develop in the young individuals those qualities and capabilities which are of value for the welfare of the Commonwealth. But that does not mean that individuality should be destroyed and the individual becomes a mere tool of the community, like a bee or an ant. A community of standardized individuals without personal originality and personal aims would be a poor community with no scope for development. On the contrary, The aim must be the training of independently acting and thinking individuals who, however, see in the service of the community their highest life problem. Fast forward to 1979 when President Jimmy Carter delivered on a campaign promise by signing Congress's Department of Education Organization Act. Just like the General Education Board, it had a reasonable basis and mission statement.
Have you read the Department of Education Organization Act? Listen to this. The intention of Congress in the establishment of the Department of Education to protect the rights of state and local governments and public and private educational institutions in the area of educational policies and administration of programs, and to strengthen and improve the control of such governments and institutions over their own educational programs and policies. Do you hear the second half of that? To strengthen and improve the local and state administration and the control of their own educational programs and policies. That is not what the DOE is doing.
No.
Not even. Listen to the next line. The establishment of the Department of Education shall not increase the authority of the federal government over education or diminish the responsibility for education which is reserved to the states and the local school systems and other instrumentalities of the states. Oh, wait. This is not what the Department of Education is at all. So when they say, well, he can't abolish the Department of Ed, no, they abolished the Department of Ed. The Department of Ed isn't that.
Right.
You know, because like you just said, I wouldn't have necessarily a problem with that.
I'd have some questions, but
I wouldn't want it.
As a direction, protecting local rights over education is exactly kind of what I want.
Exactly right.
The department was organized to actually support local and state schools, as our founders designed. Yet progressives quickly infiltrated and goose-stepped the new government-controlled federal department into full Marxism, indoctrinating wokeism in our schools through DEI, LGBTQ+ issues, social justice, and racism, as they systematically destroyed the Judeo-Christian values we were founded on. Today, they dictate their ideology to state and local schools, coerced with threats, shame, and persecution for those who dare to push back, including from parents and students. In fact, policies, actions, and in some cases laws are enacted to purposely exclude parents from the educational process, the entire opposite of our founding intent. Imagine what our founders would think if they saw the LGBTQ+ propaganda mandated in our schools while parents are silenced and arrested as our daughters are forced to change in front of boys and compete against them. So how do they do it? Follow the money. The total cost per student since 1970 has increased 185%, while students' proficiency has actually dropped. Notice the lines at the bottom reporting reading, math, and science scores have basically stayed stagnant or dipped, as the total cost has soared. Even teachers' salaries have increased, yet results in student learning has been unaffected. We keep flooding this department with taxpayer money, but where is it going? In just the last 25 years alone, the number of administrative staffing in public schools has doubled, with the amount of principals and assistants increasing 39%, while the number of students and teachers has only grown 5 to 10%. Looking back to 1950, when the Prussian model was being followed, school administration has ballooned a whopping 700%, as the amount of students has only doubled in that time frame. If you compare the charts, what becomes painfully obvious? What are the two areas that are noticeably increasing? All the money we are dumping into education is going straight into the pockets of administrators, paper pushers, policymakers, and other non-education positions, who are honestly doing nothing to improve our education system, while often receiving six-figure salaries. In fact, their woke policies are purposely meant to dumb down and enslave our population. What we are experiencing today is the fruits of their labor, as colleges are now graduating a staggering number of woke teachers who are returning to the classroom to happily comply with the woke policies they've been indoctrinated on since kindergarten. More money is obviously not the answer, folks, but we do have a solution, which I will get to in a moment. Our schools at all levels are not educating our children. They're indoctrinating them while enslaving them under mounds of debt. Ironically, some aren't even able to read the loan documents they sign because our education system is too busy teaching them to worship creation over the creator, to accept white privilege instead of all men are created equal, that wanting to learn and that reading, writing, and arithmetic are actually racist, and to respect all the new anti-science genders that people dream up while demonizing and shaming the girls that stand up against it. Don't believe me? Just listen to these NYU students.
I'm a Gallatin student. Of course I changed the name of my major depending on who I'm talking to.
I'm a Gallatin student. Of course I have 7 resumes.
I'm a Gallatin student. Of course my concentration is post and decolonial studies of social difference and racialization in the Americas.
I'm a Gallatin student. Of course all my seminars are fashion shows.
I'm a Gallatin student. Of course I study biofabrication to take ancient Greek classes.
I'm a Gallatin student. Of course I have to go to grad school.
We're Gallatin students. Of course there's no place we'd rather be.
Check out these NYU graduates as they proudly proclaim their concentration.
Hi, I'm Melanie. I'm studying the unseen body and creative spaces, the erasure and exposure of the queer.
Hey, I'm Nina, and I studied the arts, education, and social justice.
I'm Joyce. I studied decolonial intimacies, indigenous politics of resistance.
I'm Victoria, and I studied remembering or forgetting, navigating international conflict through collective memory.
Hi, I'm Kira, and I studied textiles and environmental justice.
Hi, I'm Nunyala. I'm studying living artfully, art as ritual, therapy, and pathways of decoloniality.
I'm Naomi, and I'm studying Black political economy.
Hi, I'm Natalie, and I'm studying fashion history and gender studies.
My name is Marie, and my concentration is the radical disruption for survival, development in sub-Saharan Africa, and social anthropology.
Hi, I'm Ava, and I study woman, fugitive family, relationships, and identity, the transformative Black woman.
These should be, at best, an offered course, not a complete degree. Are any of those skulls full of mush asked, what is your target job that this degree will actually qualify you for? They are so proud of their education without any understanding they have no skills or qualifications for any meaningful and specific occupation. And that's the point. They aren't meant to be productive citizens. They're meant to infiltrate all areas of society and spread Marxism. They're just useful, obedient, idiot soldiers. Even the School of Humanities at UC Irvine admits these degrees don't prepare you for a career. They just give you some arbitrary knowledge that can somehow be applied to one. The Gender and Sexuality Studies major does not dictate a career. Much better than that, it provides you with many unusual and valuable skills and knowledge that can be applied to many career choices and in nearly every part of your life. It will enhance your work experiences, your involvement with other activities on campus, and your lives and relationships as they evolve after you graduate. Same with the United Negro College Fund. You'll likely be surprised to learn that a gender studies degree is highly versatile and can be useful towards many careers, including academia, social work, public policy, law, nonprofit organizations, management, and education. Understanding how people interact based on gender and many dynamics of power can broaden your career options quite a bit and be used as an entry point to various graduate degrees. Translation: you're acquiring a degree you can virtue signal with and has taught you how to be an activist, but doesn't provide you with any marketable skills to obtain an actual productive job. So good luck. Unfortunately, our children are believing this propaganda. They enslave themselves in debt for tens of thousands of dollars and then melt down in confusion as they can't get a 6-figure salary upon graduation. They've been convinced companies will fight to have them on board because of these degrees. The truth is, most businesses know what these degrees bring: problems, controversy, and lawsuits, not productivity. as the only skill woke employees have are demanding social justice, claiming victimhood, and engaging in political activism. These degrees are a black mark on their resumes, not a gold star. So, where do they end up? Where the United Negro College Fund suggested: academia, social work, nonprofits, public policy, and education. Primarily, they are either obtaining jobs in government, which Doge is finally eliminating as they are useless positions, or they are teaching our children. In essence, they are running both our schools and our government. We are creating intellectuals for the mere sake of doing it. And it is a colossal failure. Why? Because that's how it's designed. The goal isn't to cultivate scholars. On the contrary, our schools are producing good little disciplined and obedient soldiers who are far more uneducated than our forefathers. Leftists understand you need to dumb down populations and brainwash them into subscribing to Marxist ideology so as to keep them chained to the government plantation, which is where they need them to control them. Check out my video linked below for the truth behind that objective. When Congress passed the Education Act in 1903, their main goal was the promotion of education within the United States of America without distinction of race, sex, or creed. America fought hard to eliminate discrimination on who gets educated. However, woke education focuses solely on discriminatory differences, inequalities, and victimhood instead of disciplines that move society as a whole forward. We have actually returned to the 1800s separate but equal mindset, and is not just demanded by white woke females. Black students themselves are demanding it. Liberal colleges claim to teach students critical thinking, but in actuality, it is just indoctrination, as these students can't even consider a different viewpoint. They are the first to demand a safe space, cancel someone, or, as always happens with Marxism, physically attack if an opposing view is even allowed to be presented, including by professors at colleges. Did you see how quickly leftists went from virtue signaling by buying a Tesla to virtue signaling by king one? Useful, obedient idiots. We went from the civil rights fight of desegregation and giving all students the same opportunity of an education to the education system telling our children that to be educated is white privilege and racist. We replaced the ABCs with LGBTQ, and the only variables you learn about in math class are your pronouns that can vary depending on how you feel that day. Public schools, colleges, and universities are even returning to segregated classrooms and graduations under the guise of safe spaces, social justice, and combating racism. The party that legislatively forced segregation before is the same party that has convinced woke students, including black students themselves, to voluntarily demand segregation now, while insisting the opposing party is the racist one. Useful, obedient idiots. Okay, we know what is wrong. We know where we went off track. So how do we fix it? Well, we've already started correcting things and heading in the right direction. More and more parents are seeing the benefits of home and private schooling, which is breaking the Marxist hold on our children, as the upcoming generation is one of the most conservative in decades. Studies show students who are homeschooled or attend private school receive a much better education than those within the public school system. I left teaching in the 90s because I saw wokeness coming. Unfortunately, it's gotten so much worse than I ever thought possible, and it's why my daughter will never step foot in a public school. In addition, we're calling out the Department of Education and the wokeness that has infected our educational system. Parents and students are rejecting their Marxist agenda of dumbing down the population and demanding more from our schools. Because of this, changes are being made, though slowly, as the country wakes up from our dystopian nightmare. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we are shining the brightest spotlight on all of it. Yet we must keep it up and continue to demand more from our schools. Arguably, the best step yet has been President Trump's efforts to actually eliminate the Department of Education altogether. If you are going to cure the cancer, you must cut out the diseased tumor. The department officially began operations on May 4th, 1980. After 45 years of activist administrators and out-of-control spending, which has only led to completely disastrous results, this experiment in mind control has got to go. But Trump isn't just destroying the current system, he's restoring it to our founding structure, where education is back in the hands of the states, communities, and parents, where it belongs. So what other actions can we take and also start demanding from our schools? First, we must break this cycle of believing, insisting, and requiring everyone go to college. The left insists all Americans should receive a free college education. However, some people are not meant for it, and that's not a comment on intelligence or ability. Some of the most amazing innovators, entrepreneurs, and artists dropped out of school or didn't ever go for reasons ranging from classroom boredom to financial struggles to already pursuing a productive career. How different the world might be if Bill Gates, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, Mark Zuckerberg, Sophia Amoruso of eBay, Walt Disney, Henry Ford, America's first billionaire John D. Rockefeller, Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Oprah Winfrey, Tim Pool, software mogul Larry Ellison, Ted Turner, Michael J. Fox, Whoopi Goldberg, Jessica Alba, Dave Thomas, Mary Kay Ash of Mary Kay Cosmetics, Rachel Ray, Frank Lloyd Wright, and Maya Angelou had gone to or finished college instead of pursuing their passions as they saw fit. In fact, some of these individuals didn't even finish high school. On the flip side, I've known many people whose grades were not great, but they have a true gift for other skills, such as working with machinery, carpentry, electronics, or artistry. So many jobs can and should be learned through apprenticeships, not in a classroom with a biased, opinionated, elitist professor. By convincing everyone to go to college, we are actually damaging and destroying the future of many of our children. The left continues to run on the platform of free college for all, but it's not because they actually care about educating our children. As a former teacher, I witnessed firsthand students who were forced into an intellectual path instead of a practical one, as those basic classes were removed from the curriculum. They often ended up giving up and dropping out altogether, eventually just living off the government, or worse, turning to a life of crime. The real reason they want our children in these institutions, though, is because that is where they brainwash our kids to be obedient soldiers in their war for Marxism. Without that stronghold on their minds of our youth, they lose. Period. Therefore, we must tell our schools to return to providing classes in practical and useful skills. Bring back courses like shop classes for everyone. Some of my best memories and learned skills come from my middle school industrial arts classes, like sewing, cooking, drafting, art class, wood shop, and metal shop. I learned skills in these classes for just everyday living that I still use today. Remember Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs? His focus for decades now has been promoting industrial, mechanical, and quite frankly, crucial occupations. Positions we must fill with competent workers if our communities and society want to prosper. The whole point of his show Dirty Jobs was to introduce the country to the undesirable but necessary jobs that people do, and surprisingly, with smiles on their faces and passions in their hearts. These forgotten jobs actually make the country run, and without them, we become slaves to the country that will do them. Mike also started a foundation called Micro Works, which promotes a strong and solid work ethic, as opposed to an elitist woke education. Mike's attitude is at the heart of the American spirit, and it's what made her great. yet it's quickly and purposely being suffocated. America was founded by people who wanted freedom. Freedom to live where they desired, worship God as they wished, raise their family how they saw fit, and choose their own path in life in every aspect. That attitude, that determination, that freedom allowed America to thrive. And it's why those from other nations flood our shores wanting to get in. And it's why the left, who wants Marxism, suppression, and complete authority, are fighting with all they have against Trump, Musk, and MAGA, who are trying to restore independence, prosperity, and freedom to America. Why? Because you can't control people when they are truly free. I'm Rosie the Riveter, and that's my 2 cents. But what do you think? Leave your comments down below. If you enjoy my content, please consider supporting my work on Patreon. You can find all my videos and my blog, Liberating Letters, at thefactspaper.com. You can also start your own research on the Facts Paper by exploring the thousands of links to articles I have, including those noted in my videos, sharing the truth fake news propagandists won't. Investigate and discover the truth for yourself.